Saul and his men. This is the time that David draws closest to God, when he's hiding in the caves and running in the forest. That's when he composes the Psalms, and that's when he's crying out to God the most. It says, day after day Saul searched for him, but God did not give David into his hands. David thought to himself, one of these days I will be destroyed by the hand of Saul. The best thing I can do now is escape to the land of the Philistines. So David did go to Philistine, and he stayed there for a year and 4 months. Then there was a war between Israel and the Philistines. The Philistines didn't trust David to go and fight. They figured he would turn in the middle of the battle, so they kept him in Philistine. And they went and they killed Saul, and they killed his son Jonathan. David returns, and he gets anointed as king now that Saul is gone. He rules for 7 years, and then he starts to stray from God. While his army is off fighting a battle, David is on the roof of a building, peeping at Uriah's wife. Uriah is one of David's special guards. David calls Uriah back from the battlefield, asks him how the battle is going. At David's invitation, Uriah eats and drinks with David, and David makes him drunk. David wrote a letter to his captain that night, and he sent it back to the battlefield with Uriah. In the letter he wrote, put Uriah in the front, where the fighting is the fiercest, and withdraw from him so that he will die. He sealed this man's fate in the letter, and had this man taken and carried himself. When Bathsheba, who was Uriah's wife, found out that her husband was killed, she went into a time of mourning. But after that time of mourning, David called her over to his house. She became his wife, and she bare him a son. But this thing that David had done, it had displeased the Lord. Murder and adultery, 2 of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not do this. At that time, the prophet of God was a man named Nathan. Nathan came to David and told him that he was doing wrong, that God sees him, and that David told David how God sees him, really. That was very humbling to David. Nathan tells David, the Lord has taken away your sin. You are not going to die. But because of what you have done, the child that you have with Bathsheba, that child will die. After Nathan left, the Lord struck the child of David and Uriah's wife, and he became ill. David pleaded for God with this child. He fasted, and he spent nights lying on the ground. He would not get up or even eat. On the 7th day, the child died. David now reaped the harvest of his sins. But David and Bathsheba had many more sons. One of these sons, Solomon, he would end up building God's holy temple. It was said that Solomon was the smartest man who ever lived. He also had 700 wives. I don't know how smart that was. But David then went on to become Israel's greatest king. He was called a man after God's own heart. He was the writer of the Psalms, beautiful works, the Psalms. He had his own son build God's temple, where God was able to live among his people for a while. God established the house of David in Israel forever. David, in the lineage of Christ himself. Some of the greatest examples of faith from the Old Testament, brothers and sisters. Many I didn't get to. Jonah, God wanted to use him to redeem an entire city of Nineveh. He didn't want to hear about it. He ran. Destroy them, God. He said, they're sinners. I want to help them. So he ran and he got on a boat. He ended up in the belly of a fish for 3 days. That would make you reconsider working for God, I think. It says the fish belched him out on the shore, and then he followed God's instructions, and thousands were saved. How about Job? Job loved God. The devil challenged God to take his hand off of Job and let Satan sift him for a while. He just knew that Job would curse God if he did this. Job's children were killed. All of his livestock was taken. His servants were killed. His entire body was inflicted with boils. His wife came and said to him, why don't you just curse God already and get it over with? He wouldn't do it. He stayed true to God, and he was redeemed. He was blessed with more than he ever had. Many others in the Bible, brothers and sisters. Nehemiah led out of bondage to rebuild Jerusalem. Esther, she helped to foil a plot to exterminate the entire Jewish people by the Persians. Isaiah, Jeremiah, the list goes on and on and on. And that's all just in the Old Testament. But I would like to tell you about one in the New Testament, brothers and sisters. Saul of Tarsus, Christian killer, murderer, bounty hunter of God's people. He was taught early by the best of the Jewish scholars. They say he knew the doctrine inside and out. He saw Christianity as blasphemy. His life's mission was to wipe out Christians, destroy this new religion, nip it in the bud. But then Jesus threw him off his high horse. Saul, why do you persecute me? God put scales over his eyes, sends him stumbling blindly among the Christians. God then sends a man named Ananias to see Saul. That's the last thing Ananias wants to do. Go see the Christian killer? No way. He says, I'm not going. God says, go. This man is my chosen instrument. He is going to carry my name before the Gentiles. The ones he hates the most, the Gentiles. Saul has to carry the message to them. God says, I will show him how much he must suffer for my name. Saul was stoned twice, shipwrecked, arrested, beaten many times, beaten near death. Cast off to the island of Patmos to die. But in between all that, he never lost his desire to serve God. He did incredible work for the Lord. He went to many foreign countries to help set up churches. He wrote these fantastic, right-to-the-point letters to these churches to tell them what God desired. And while in prison, he was chained to a guard. He considered all of that joy for Christ. These are some of the people, brothers and sisters, that God used to change the world. Men and women, sinners and saints, the best and the worst. Regular people like you and I. You just answer this call. When God calls, you should answer. You might end up in a lion's den. You might end up in a hole in the desert. You never know. Believe in him, brothers and sisters. Draw close to him, and he will draw close to you. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Amen.